Starliner Media. Starliner Media presents Music Night at the Majestic with your host, Michael Boswell.
To jump forward here, but still talk about folks that you got to work with that you wouldn't have expected. In 2003, you did the album with Johnny Johnson.
Well, actually, the first album we did with Johnny Johnson was back in the 90s. And here's how that came about. We did two albums. And you're correct. There was another one, Meet Me in Bluesland. But what happened, we were at the Grammy Award show in New York in 1992. Let's see, it would have been early 92, I guess, or 91, 92. And we went to a Grammy party the night before the Grammy ceremony. And for some reason, I had bought an album by Johnny called Johnny Be Bad. Right before we left for New York, I bought this CD. And I was real excited about it because some of the members from NRBQ were on it. Keith Richards was on it, Eric Clapton. One of our friends, Steve Ferguson, was on it from NRBQ. And we listened to that going up. And we were just like, wow, this is cool. This is great, And we get to this Grammy party and Johnny Johnson's there. And we just gravitated to him. Even though the Allman Brothers were in the room, actually met Buddy Guy the first time that night. But we gravitated right to Johnny. And the managers, our manager and Johnny's manager were like taking notice and going, these guys really like each other. So that was where the seeds were planted for our album That'll Work. That would happen in 93-ish. What happened is, as you know, in 92, early 92, the original Headhunters imploded. Doug and Ricky left in June of 92. We put the band back together with Mark Orr and Anthony Kinney, and we put the pieces back together pretty quick. And then we went in the studio that fall, and started on Rave On, our third album. After we got that album done, we were offered to do an album with Johnny. And so they sent Johnny down to the practice house, and we rehearsed, jammed with him, and started writing songs. And then we did 90. I think 93 is when That'll Work would come out. It could have been 94, but 93. So that was the first album with Johnny Johnson. Of course, we were infatuated with Johnny because he was on all those great Chuck Berry records, and just great stuff. And he, the thing is with Johnny, when you put him in the mix, he made us play like we were grown men. We could start a groove, but when he started playing, he would pull things back where it needed to be. And he really, really made us grow as musicians. Really did. And it was Uncle Johnny. We loved him. We really loved him. So, after the album came out, we played a few gigs together. We'd always play together. We brought him up when we were doing the album Soul, which would have been around 2000, early 2000s. We brought him out to play on Have You Ever Loved a Woman? And we just started cutting songs while he was there. And that was the genesis for Meet Me in Bluesland. That would come out a little later. So we did two albums with him. And then on Ramblin' Man, live from Ramblin' Man, there's 3 bonus tracks with Johnny playing piano on that as well. So we did quite a bit with him.
Yeah.
He's a hero.
I'll tell you, since we've been talking about all the covers that you've done, one thing that's a hallmark of your guitar playing, Greg, is you'll have so many different tones and sounds to across it. Now, of course, we'll get to the new album. That's a fact, Jack. But like for example, on the new album, as you go through it, you'll hear 3 consecutive songs where your guitar part sounds totally different from track to track. So you go from Lonely Too Long.
Yeah.
Into Heart and Soul, and then Rick Derringer's Cheap Tequila.
Yeah.
So when you go into something, what's your approach with each song?
It's just basically what is the song about and what is the feel of the song. Obviously on like for instance, you know what closes the album out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's all get together and fight. You know, there's that little intro. And that was when Richard started singing that to me. It became obvious that was going to be a country song, you know. And I just went back to my roots of hearing Ernest Tubb, you know, on TV when I was a kid, you know. You know, that kind of thing right there. And I mean, I grew up because my dad's love for country music and my mother's love for country. You know, I grew up hearing that old stuff. So there's country roots in there. Like when Richard brought Let's All Get Together and Fight, he sang it, and it became obvious that it was going to be a country song. If you go back to, you mentioned Heart and Soul, we actually had written that with Anthony Kinney when he was in the band back probably in the late 90s, early 2000s. And when we went back to an old cassette, and it was okay. It was just an up-tempo rocker, and we weren't real happy with it. Somehow we came across the more of a rockabilly approach, you know. And so I kind of, you know, from my days with Ronnie McDowell or just studying music, you know, I kind of got into that, you know, that the Scotty Moore stuff. Oh, that kind of picking, you know, that kind of stuff. And that song just felt like it needed that kind of style. Obviously, I wouldn't want to use a heavily distorted Marshall tone on that. You brought up Heart. What else did you bring up?
Lonely Too Long.
Yeah, that was more of a melodic, mid-tempo song, and it just felt like it needed more of a. You know, thinking about that when Doug played it, it just felt like it needed more of a guitar singing type thing. You know, so yeah, I just kind of play, well, you know, like wherever the song is going, you know, like that's a Fact Jack, the title track. Obviously, that's a rock and roll heavy song. So I went straight for my Les Paul and my Marshall and cranked that thing on 10 and let it go, you know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I would, the tones are different, but I hope the semblance are there enough where it still sound like me and the Headhunters, you know, pretty much. Cheap Tequila, that's a different trip because I use a wah-wah pedal on that. And I hadn't used a wah-wah on a Heads album since, I think the last time I'd used one on a Headhunter album was Kicking Them Blues Around from Electric Barnyard. And there again, that song was written by Rick Derringer and recorded by Rick Derringer for his All-American Boy album. And Johnny Winter did it on Still Alive and Well. So we knew we were going to do that song. We had to bring something different to the table, and we took it more, kind of took it more in, well, what would Jimi Hendrix do here? You know, kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of. Took it more.
I was going to say, as you're hearing songs, is it a case, Greg, where you hear it and then you kind of reflect on, you mentioned Ernest Tubb, playing, for Let's All Get Together and Fight, or you hear a song and it makes you think of a legendary player who's influenced you.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you hear it, you go, well, what would Jimmy Bryant do on this, or what would Merle Travis do with this type thing?
Exactly. Well, those things are in you. If you're a student of your instrument, whether you'll be a piano player, guitar player, whatever, you've studied, and these things are just in you. You just know. I mean, from playing with Ronnie or every other band I played with. I played in a lot of cover bands over the years, and you just take these experiences and they're in you. You learn how to do different things. Uh, Basically, what you're doing on the guitar, you're just reacting to what's the melody, the performance. You're just in the moment. A lot of times I'm like on, oh gosh, going to be all right. The first song, pretty much just answering the vocal. Pretty much it's like a call and response type thing. The singer will say something, then you just come up with a little riff, uh, whatever. You just kind of mimic what he's doing. But yeah, it's just from it's in your heart and soul, and it just comes out the way it comes out.
Yeah. Now, who would you say are a few of your biggest influences, guitar player wise?
Oh, that would change so much, but I think at the top of the list would be Jimi Hendrix, early Eric Clapton, Michael Bloomfield, Chet Atkins, Merle Travis, Reggie Young. I had to put in there. You know who Reggie Young is?
Mm-hmm.
Reggie was a great studio player. Gosh, there's so many. Steve Cropper. I mean, you know, I love soul, man. I love soul music, man. I love it.
As it should be.
Yes, I love Ronnie Montrose. He was one of my favorites. Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck. Gosh, Dwayne Allman, Dickie Betts. I loved Peter Frampton with Humble Pie. Oh my Lord! But I think at the top of the heap, I think Jimi Hendrix is there. But I'll tell you, man, I could probably list guitar players for days and days, you know, because I learned something from just about everybody growing up. I mean, I learned, hey man, we learned from uh, John Fogerty, simplicity of the riff of the song.
Yeah.
You learn
But
something from everybody.
the thing that always amazes me is, yeah, and we said this on the show before, guitars are a tool of
Yeah,
the trade.
yeah,
But how one guitar, take whatever model, different players can get so many different sounds out of that one tool. It amazes me.
exactly. Well, we could take this guitar right here, this Telecaster. I don't normally play a Telecaster like I do a Les Paul. I play a Les Paul most of the time, but I love Tellies, I love Strats, I love 330. I mean, you can look over here and you can see a few things over here. A few of my buddies, my friends, and but you could take this guitar, this amp, you could put Jimmy Page, you could put John Fogerty, you could put Eric Clapton, you could put Jeff Beck, Larry Carlton in a lineup and hand this guitar to them and say, play me some blues. It would sound completely different in each of their hands because the good Lord put something in these fingers. There's a fingerprint. I have to think that the fingerprint has something to do with that tone, you know?
Mm-hmm.
God's pretty smart.
I'd say. Tell me this. You mentioned your Les Paul. Is that the 58 that Hank Jr.
Yeah,
gave you?
yeah. I'll show it to you. See, can you see it?
Yeah.
There it is. That's Hank the
nice.
Plank. We call that Hank the Plank. Joe Bonamassa named him back a few years ago. Let me get my mess out of here, guys. Sorry about that. But that's Hank the Plank right there. That's the star of the show right there. That's my pride and joy. This right here is let's see if you can see him. That is a 64 ES335 that belonged to Travis Womack. Travis Womack was a session player in Muscle Shoals. This guitar has been on Osmond Brother records, Mac Davis records. It's been on a lot of hit records out of Muscle Shoals. This is a 62 ES335. Just a great solid guitar. My love for Larry Carlton. That's why I've got that. This 345 right here, that belonged to Ed King. Ed King, when he passed away, they put a lot of these guitars up for sale, and I ended up buying that one. This is a copy of Billy Gibbons' Pearly Gates. This is number 50, aged by Tom Murphy. And I love Billy Gibbons. That's another one of my heroes. 1957 Strat. 57 Strat right here. I used that on Cheap Tequila and Susanna. That's what I used on that. I used this. I think I used this one here on Let's All Get Together and Fight. And maybe, oh gosh. Let me think here a minute. What else do we do? Maybe Lonely Too Long. That may be on Lonely Too Long. I'm pretty sure. Richard used this one a lot on the album. But right here, Hank the Plank, that belonged to Hank Williams. It belonged to Ed King first. And then Hank Jr. got it. And he bought it at Gruen Guitars along with the gold top. And then it was on the road with Hank. And Hank just ended up, he loaned it to me initially. Then he ended up giving it to me. So I've had it ever since. So there you go. That's the lineup.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, and every one of them has a story.
Every guitar has a story and a sound. There you go. Like I said, and here's the right here, this Marshall right here on the bottom is a 1969. I used this on Picking on Nashville for most of the album right there. That's the sound of that doesn't go on the road very much at all. It just goes to studio now, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell me this. You talk about, playing with Hank. Any memorable shows on that tour?
Oh gosh, several. Yeah. Hank was always great, man. I love Hank. It got to the point where we were touring with Hank. We would go out on All My Rowdy Friends Are Coming Out Tonight, but I don't know if Hank was bored with touring or just didn't. I don't know what the deal was. He got calling us out early, like during the show. We would do like more than half the show with him sometimes. And I'd be up there kicking off songs I didn't know. And I think some of the guys in the band were like going, oh, this is getting weird. We played Chicago. Did we play Chicago with Hank a couple of times? There was some place we played up there where he left early. He got, I don't know, and there was almost a riot took place.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, that was kind of a memorable time. Then
we would think.
Yeah, then we played Alpine Valley. I can't remember if we played before or after Stevie Ray Vaughan. I think it was before the Stevie Ray Vaughan tragedy, because I remember that place. Looking up there at those hills and things, it was strange, but they're great memories with Hank. We loved him and his band, and we had a great relationship with him. Great guy, wonderful guy.
Yeah. Well, tell you what, getting back to the new album, That's a Fact, Jack.
Yes, sir.
What's a couple of your favorite tracks on that one?
Gosh, it's hard because normally on each album there might be one or two songs you go, I don't know if we copped that one or not. But on this album, I have to say, I like it. I really do.
Well, you earlier, Itchy Brother having a single out back around 73 or 4, what have you. Was that Shotgun Effie?
Shotgun Effie, I wrote the beginning of that in 1973. I lived in Memphis, Indiana. I was playing with a little power trio up there. And that was written for Richard and Fred's grandmother, Miss Effie Young. And I just had a real rough outline, and I think I played it with this little trio a couple of times. But in the fall of 73, I was working at a printing company in Louisville, and one day I get a call. The superintendent says, hi, a gentleman by the name of Richard Young is called. Can you give him a call during your lunch break? And I went over, there was a place called the Red Barn across the street, which was a little hamburger chain. Do you remember those?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good burgers.
Went and got me a burger. And I remember talking to Richard on the little payphone over there. And Richard said, hey, Ma Effie will give us the money to make a little 45 if you're interested. I said, yeah, let's do it. So we got together on Richard and Fred's front porch in the fall of 73, and we hammered out, we finished Shotgun Effie and finalized it, come up with the arrangement, and also a song that Richard had written called Rock and Roller. And then just a few weeks later, we went to Burkesville, Kentucky to a little studio run by a friend named Wayne Sexton. And we we recorded both those songs, Shotgun Effie and Rock and Roller, and they were released on a little Indy 45 in early 74. And that was the genesis for Shotgun Effie. As you know, we brought it forward last year. But Rock and Roller, actually, we had redone that on another album. It's on Meet Me in Bluesland. We did that with Johnny Johnson. We completely did that song different than what we did it with Itchy Brother. But Shotgun Effie, I wrote that for Richard and Fred's grandmother. Of course, the guys helped write it. I sang it back then on the little 45 record. And then Fred had hit me up about singing Cheap Tequila, and I tried it one time in the studio, and I just didn't feel it for me. And in the back of my mind, I said, can we do Shotgun Effie? And at least, even if it don't make the album, we'll have it in our archives. And if, maybe it'll be on a box set someday or whatever. And we did it. Initially, I thought, well, maybe we'll go in and we'll do it slower. We'll swamp it up a little bit. When Fred counted off, we went right back to 1973, really close to the way we did it. We play it better. It about killed me trying to sing it in the same key, but that's the way we did it. Doug played a great bass part on it, and, but it was written by Richard, Fred, Anthony, myself, bringing it forward from 73, man.
Did you have any idea in 73 that you'd be, doing that again almost 50 years later?
God, no, man. Ain't that crazy? That's just crazy, Michael. I know, man. Music is an adventure, isn't it?
Exactly. Well, music's life.
Music is, or anything you do in life, if you just keep your antenna up and just follow the muse, anything can happen. Yeah, I never thought we'd ever do it again. Back in the early 70s, I aspired to sing a little more, but I always got around guys that could really sing and remember lyrics, and I just deviated back to playing guitar and was happy doing that. And it was good to do it. I'm glad we got to do it. It means something to me. Yeah,
it's always nice when you can say tie things together and bring everything forward.
Some closure, man. Because that song, even though it was on a 45 back in the day, I sonically, musically, we weren't mature. Sonics back then were not as good as they are now. So I feel like we got a version we can live with. But there's something special about that little 45 record. There's a innocence. There's energy that we had boundless energy back then. And I even blew the studio amp up during the sessions for the first Shotgun Effie back in 73. Sorry, Wayne Sexton.
I was going to say, sometimes there's some bands where they'll start out where it's very raw, what have you. Maybe the playing's not, it's not as good as what they would get to later.
Yeah.
But there's something about those records that, feels more real than when they're more, when the playing is more polished or what have you.
Exactly. Well, yeah. Well, there again, the first time I hooked up with Richard and Fred and their cousin Anthony, they had a sound. They had something. It was in their DNA, so to speak. It was just already there. We just needed to mature. You got to mature as a musician. And there was a rawness on that first Shotgun Effie record You can't replicate that. But I have to say, the spirit is still there on that little recording that we just did. It's there. I don't claim this is not the start of me being a vocalist and having a career as a vocalist by no means, but I wished the only thing I cringe about on that is the first verse. I wasn't quite comfortable. And when you get to verse 2 and verse 3, I was starting to get the hang of it. I should have went back and sang first verse again. That's the only thing that bugs me about that. But maybe that's a part of the beauty. Who knows? The rawness of it. It's honest. It's just an honest song. It's about a real lady it was Richard and Fred's grandmother, Miss Effie Young, and we loved her. She was very instrumental growing up. She helped us in so many different ways. She gave us the practice house. If we ever needed money to go play a gig, she would take care of us. I remember one year, 1978, we were going to play the soundstage in Louisville. In order to play, we had to join the union, and she was kind enough to let us shovel corn out of the silo and go sell it at Highsville, Kentucky, to get the money to pay the union. She bought Fred's drums. I mean, she done things for everybody. She was a great lady. She could be intimidating. And she did. She drove a truck around. She had a gun in the truck. She probably had a shotgun in the back. And I wouldn't have come up with that unless I knew it. But she was really sweet. She would be, me and Richard and her would be driving around. We'd take her to Glasgow to the bank. And she'd be just cussing Richard, say, look at him wearing those lawyer glasses. But I knew how to sweet talk her. Oh, she was a character, man. I miss her. I miss Richard and Fred's. I miss all of our folks. There's a lot of folks going on, man. Yeah.
Yep. So, well, tell me this, Greg. Obviously, we didn't have time to hit all the albums, but is there anything that we missed out on here?
Well, we're out on the new album. That's a Fact Jack is out. You can download it. You can stream it. You can buy CD copies. It's not on vinyl yet. We'll be touring this summer. We'll be hitting the road. Matter of fact, we've already been on the road. I do a radio show, as you know, in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
The Lowdown Hoedown.
Yeah, the Lowdown Hoedown. I've been doing that at WDNS for over 20 years. I started there in November of 1990. November of 2001 there. And we celebrated 20 years at D93 back in November. But I did 2 years and a half at another station. The Lowdown Hoedown started in Campbellsville, Kentucky at WVLC in November of 1997. I was there 2.5 years. And so the show's about, it's about 22 and a half years old now, almost 23 years old. So I do that every Monday night from 7 to 10 Central Standard Time. It's a blues show, but we take liberties with the genre. We'll do soul music. We'll do blues rock music. Sometimes we've done country. We've interviewed a lot of different people. We've had Vince Gill, Marty Stewart. We've had Sam Bush. We've had, we've had Joe Bonamassa on the show. We've had Peter Frampton on the show, John Sebastian. There's a bunch of folks that I've got to meet on the show. The show streams live every Monday night from 7 to 10. WDNS-FM.com or D93rocks.com. And it's always fun doing it. Always a blast. I love radio. I was a fan of radio since I was a kid, growing up listening to AM radio.
How did you get into, how did the show start?
Well, the infatuation for radio started when I was a kid, riding around on my dad's Plymouth. They were always listening to the country station in Louisville, WTMT. And I just was always infatuated. Of course, back in the late 50s, early 60s, the DJs had the same quality about their voice. And I always thought, this same DJ is on all day, all night. I couldn't figure it out, but they just sounded the same to me. I don't know why. But anyway, I loved radio. And then, going in about, 64, 65, my parents were listening to WTMT. My brother was listening to WKLO and WAKY out in Louisville, the pop station. We also had a great R&B station, WLOU, and I was listening to that a bit. And I just loved listening to radio. It's just a mystique about it. And in the back of my mind, I always wanted to pursue it a little bit. Of course, when the guitar hit in 68, that kind of went out the window. But as a kid, I used to take a TARC bus from the south end of Louisville to go visit my grandparents and stay with them on the weekend. And I'd always get off at Broadway and I'd walk down 4th Street and go to the guitar shops, go to the record stores. Then I'd go to the WKLO showcase window and watch the DJs work. And I just thought, oh, how cool is that? 2 turntables, cart machine, big old Gates board. And man, they look like they're just having so much fun. And it was just the seeds were planted many years ago. Finally, around 86, I started doing a little blues show on Monday night at WLOC in Mumfordville, Kentucky called Blue Monday. And the Headhunters started doing a live show there, the Chitlin Show, and where we play twice a month. And so the radio thing kind of came back in that form. But of course, when we signed our deal in 89 and we were so busy in 90, the radio thing went back out the window. In 97, WVLC offered me a slot at doing a Southern rock show. And I went back to them and said, well, what if we do a blues show, but we encompass all the genre? We do rockabilly, we do rock, blues, we do soul music, Southern rock, just everything, mix it together. And we call it the Lowdown Hoedown. And they were all cool with it. So for 2.5 years, it started out on Friday night, which meant I had to tape a lot of the shows. And back then, taping was way different. As you
Oh, yes.
It's a different ball game now. So around April of 2000, I had an engineer back then. I just put the show together, and he would key the mic. He would play the CDs, and I didn't have any engineer experience whatsoever. So when he quit, I decided to take a break from it. And then about just a few months later, I had an offer to revive the show at WDNS in Bowling Green through Brian Locke. And we worked the deal out, and I started down there in November of 2001 and been doing it every Monday night since. If I'm not there, we just run a recorded show is what we do. But had the radio love. You're from Chicago, right?
Yes.
Well, let me tell you, I grew up when I was a kid, when I moved to Metcalfe County, and my dad got fed up with Louisville. He decided he wanted to move us all back to where they were from, Metcalfe County, which was great because I met Richard and Fred. So at night, as you know, radio at night is a different ballgame.
Absolutely.
Because of Skip. Well, I listened to a lot of Chicago radio as a kid. I listened to WLS and WCFL. And one of my heroes from listening to WCFL was Ron Britton. Do you remember Ron?
Oh, yeah.
And we've become really good friends. He's passed on last year. But there was 2 things about Ron Britton that I picked up on. Of course, you guys had Art Roberts, all these great DJs up there. But what I picked up from Ron Britton during the week, he entertained you. He was crazy. He had these sound effects going on and all this. During the week, it was just a normal top 40 thing. On Sunday night, he did a show called The Subterranean Circus. And I picked up on that one night in 68. And I was like, and he was a totally different guy on it. He was like this introspective DJ, like a hippie DJ, and he was playing Iron Butterfly and all the heavier stuff. And that really had a big impact on me. So I was listening. I had a car radio hooked up in the house on a filtered power supply because car radios just had a better sound and they had a better front end for picking up stations. And I had an antenna outside, like a car antenna outside of the house. And I would listen to WCFL a whole lot. And sometime in the 90s, when I got on the computer, I started thinking about Ron Britton and couldn't find any information about him. I mean, he was such a big influence on me. And finally, I tracked down Ronnie Rice, who I'd met with Ronnie McDowell. Ronnie Rice was a singer for the New Colony Six. And I emailed Ronnie, found they had like a website up. And Ronnie got back to me and said, "Oh, yeah, I remember you when you played with Ronnie. And this is," and they said, "Congratulations on the Headhunters and all that stuff." He said, I think Dick Biondi will know how to get in touch with Ron. And he gave me a number of the station that Dick was working at. And I called Dick one day. It was an oldie station, I think.
Yeah, the 104.3.
Yeah, I called him one afternoon. He said, "Hi, Greg, I know who you guys are. Congratulations." And I said, "Well, I'm trying to track Ron Britton down." He said, "Oh, Ron. Well, I think Ron moved back to Louisville." And and of course, the light went off, went bam. I'm going. I said, "Ron went to Louisville?" Yeah. I said, "Yeah, he's from Kentucky." I had no idea. He actually got his radio start in Louisville, but he worked here in Glasgow back in the 50s. And I knew a guy he worked with that Ron aspired to be like this guy. I didn't know this till later. Well, anyway, of course, I didn't realize that Ron Britton, that wasn't his real name. It was Ron Magel. And somehow I just couldn't track him down. But one day I had a friend that worked in real estate. He found a piece of property that had Ron Britton's name on it. And he got a number, and I called Ron up. And I didn't realize that Ron was going through some bad depression at the time. And he said, and he was just then that I would try to track him down. And he knew about my band. And I think it really helped him. And then I started visiting him and his wife, Peach. And we became really good friends. And back in 2019, when I did my 18th year show, him and Peach drove down and he co-hosted with me,
Oh, wow. How cool was that?
That is cool. That is so cool. And it was amazing because he is one of the guys. There was a lot of guys I grew up listening to in Louisville, but Ron had a huge impact on me. Really did. And Chicago radio, your whole music scene up there was amazing. The New Colony Six, the Crying Shames, Baby Huey and the Babysitters, the
Buckinghams, Rufus.
Yeah, who else? Ides of March.
Mm-hmm.
REO Speedwagon. I remember hearing, even though they came from Champaign, I remember listening to Chicago radio when I was a kid, and they would say REO Speedwagon. I don't know what the rooms were. I know there was the Kinetic Playground was one of the places up there, I believe. Mm-hmm. But Chicago radio was a big.
Yeah, well, Styx came out of the south suburbs of Chicago too.
Styx too. God, yes. Of course, you had the blues thing going on as well. And Michael Bloomfield came out of Chicago. Elton Pitt, Paul Butterfield Blues Band, that thing. But it was a lot of hey, I got into radio. It was just, and my son is autistic, highly functioning autistic. He loves radio just like I did. He's got 6 radio shows he listens to every week religiously. And he's got 1 on Friday night, 2 on Saturday night he listens to, and then 3 on Sunday night. And he parks himself. I bought him a Bose radio for Christmas about 2 years ago. He parks himself in the living room, and that's what he does. And I was just like that too when I was a kid. It's just so crazy. And then, then next thing you know, I'm out buying records. I go to King's Record Shop in 1965, and the first record I ever bought was California Girls by the Beach Boys. And then on the flip side was Let Him Run Wild. It all works together. The next thing, you get guitars come into play, and then you find out you're addicted to music.
Tell me this, Greg. When you started in radio,
mm-hmm.
did you get that rush when you're playing the songs, the records that you had as a kid, and now you're the one, you're playing it?
Yeah. What I did, my show's a blues show. What I did during the pandemic, it became apparent by April 2020, May, things were crazy. So I changed up my show quite a bit that year. I started going back to stuff I grew up with. I thought that people need to lighten up. They need to be entertained. Like one week I might go, let's go to the year 1968. Let's go to 1969. I might play the Young Rascals, the Byrds, different things. Yeah, I get, man, every time I hear Wichita Lineman by Glenn Campbell, it takes me back to the fall of 1968 when I first just hearing it on that AM radio. And there's something about hearing All Along the Watchtower by Jimi Hendrix. I can just go back to where I was when I heard it living in Cedar Flats. I can go back when I hear Turn, Turn, Turn of the Byrds at the end of 65 when I heard it for the first time walking down Berry Boulevard in Louisville on a transistor radio, or hearing Mr. Tambourine Man. I can remember the first time I heard Like a Rolling Stone on WLS. I was at my aunt's house in Metcalfe County, and they played it. So yeah, that's the beauty about music, man. It stays in your soul, and it captures time in a bottle, so to speak.
Exactly.
It really does. It's magic. There again,
well,
I think our speaker was pretty smart, wasn't he?
Yeah. I was just saying, the thing that I always find interesting, you'll hear a song, and that song can mean two completely different things to two different people.
Yeah, exactly.
However, at the same time, it takes them back to that exact same point in time.
Exactly. It does. It captures time in a bottle. It takes you right back to it. I don't know why I even thought about that. That's another great song by Jim Croce. God. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's the year of 65. The summer of 65, something clicked in my spirit. And I love 1964. The Beatles came out, but there's something about 1965 when everything clicked, and I just decided that was when the seeds were really planted. The Lovin' Spoonful, the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, the Yardbirds, plus, God, what else? There were so many great songs.
Roger Miller.
Oh, God, I love Roger Miller. He was just, the cool thing, WKLO, and I'm sure this was true in Chicago radio as well. They might play I Can't Get No Satisfaction. The next thing they know, they might play England Swings, right after that. Is that the way it was up there?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, until radio became so fragmented on it, I mean, even up to, early 80, 81, 82. 82 is probably the last year where, say early 80s, you can look at the top 10 singles, and you'll have Donna Summer and Eddie Rabbitt back to back on the chart.
Exactly.
In your top 40 stations, we're playing those songs because they're in the top 40. So you'd hear one station and you could hear totally opposite music, but good music is good music.
Absolutely. And you actually hit on a point, because at that around 80, 81, I was playing clubs to make a living. I was playing a really good horn band. And I remember playing Donna Summers and Eddie Rabbitt. Just, playing those two in that band. So that was another thing I was learning back then too, how to change up tones and things like that. I might have to play Chic one minute, then we might we might even play a song by Ted Nugent next. It was crazy. And I actually went to Cuba in 1980 to play with this horn band. And we got there. They said, there's two things you can't do. You can't play Freebird and you can't play Cat Scratch Fever, I think. Because they said the sailors get fighting whenever you play those songs. It's crazy. But anyway, man, going back, yeah, man, music is music. Man, they can all, man, Dylan and Buck Owens, James Brown, they can hang in the same mud hole. Come on.
Yep, exactly. Well, you don't get me started on Buck Owens. I love
like
me
Buck?
some Buck.
Are you Buck? Did you like Buck?
Oh, yeah,
Well,
Buck is one of my absolute favorites.
Well, when I was growing up in Louisville, that was the beauty about WKLO. They would play Welfare Line, then they might play Paperback Writer right after that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's great, man. I just think it's great. And we got to meet Buck. Buck actually, we were playing Bakersfield with Hank and Buck invited us out to his ranch and for a cookout back in '91. And that was a thrill. That was a thrill, man. Because I love Buck Owens and the Buckaroos.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
And Don Rich. Don Rich for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, on the radio show, we've got on this Sunday's episode, we've got a live segment where it's all live recordings, and we do Buck's live at the London Palladium cover of Johnny B. Good.
Yeah.
And I tell folks, that aren't familiar, with Buck Owens, I tell them, he's one of the godfathers, if you will, of country rock.
Exactly.
And it's the stuff that he was doing, guitar wise, what have you. So, but he used to Don Rich. Now, listen to a typical country record from '69 to the guitar playing, and then you listen to what Don Rich was doing on Johnny B. Good. Yeah, I mean, he was rocking.
I'll go back and check it out today. And it was the guitar part on "Who's Gonna Mow Your Lawn." Was that like kind of fuzz tone or something?
The whole record is fuzz tone. I mean, when Buck did something, Buck did it.
Yeah. And was that actually Don playing that guitar part? Probably was. When did Don pass? He passed in the 70s, right?
74, I believe.
Yeah.
And Mow Your Grass, I think, was 70.
Buck had his guitar at his house, his Telecaster. And you could tell Buck, he still got emotional even back in '90 whenever he started talking about Don. Oh, yeah. What was his steel player's name, too?
Tom Brumley.
Brumley was, there was another one right before him, too. Well, Brumley, I knew who Tom Brumley is because he went on to play with the Stone Canyon Band.
Yeah, and J.D. Maness took over.
Oh, yes, he's another one, yeah. What is James Burton did an album with a steel player, Slick Corn Picking or something. It was one of Buck's steel players. It's the textbook and chicken picking. That kind of stuff like that. And yeah, man, Buck had a great band. Merle Haggard, the Strangers, they were great.
Oh, yeah.
I love Merle Haggard, a lot too. Even when I was listening to Cream and Jimi Hendrix, man, I always took notice when Mama Tried come on the radio or the jukebox around the home. Loved it so much.
Yeah, well, even the production on their records, the sound was a little bit different. It was extremely clean, but it was distinctive.
Was that because they recorded the Capitol Tower? Is it? Or
I don't know how much of it. I know Ken Nelson did a lot of it. So Ken's the guy who produced the Bebopalula.
Yeah, Ken also worked with Merle Travis, right? Yeah, he's famous for sure, man. He was.
Oh yeah.
Did Dwight Yoakam go back and use the same studio a little bit with Pete Anderson? Maybe.
I don't know. Pete was on the show, and I didn't think to ask him that. So.
Yeah, he's a great player.
Yeah, yes, he is.
I think Dwight really, when he come back, when he did, with his first album, first 2-3 albums, it was a great thing, bringing the raw, real country back. Oh yeah,
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
He did. Yeah, this is another thing we talk about on this show, frequently. If you're going to do a cover version, don't do a note for note, like
No.
where it sounds like one of those sounds like, albums that were big back in the 70s.
No.
Yeah. But you've got to bring something to it that's different.
Exactly. Well,
It's got to be you doing that song as opposed to like a standard cover
I
version.
agree 100%. That's the Headhunters credo from day one. Walk softly when we did, walk softly or skip a rope, or even the closest we may have got a little close on Spirit in the Sky, but not really. But most generally, when we do a cover, if we can't bring something new to it, we don't touch it. There's just nothing. Why should you do it? I can't do note for note, man. Even when I was a kid, I wasn't really good at figuring out note for note stuff, But what I listened to when I was as a guitar player when I was a kid, I was really more infatuated with the tones, and then bringing your personality into that sound. Obviously, because your fingers, you're going to sound like yourself anyway, But yeah, you're right. There's no sense in doing a. Yeah, when somebody said, "Oh man, you sound just like Eric Clapton," I go, "Oh God, I love Eric Clapton, by the way." But I said, well, I'm not doing my job if I sound like Eric Clapton. But I do love Eric, really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell you what, Greg, I know you've got to get rolling, here. So
I here in a few minutes to sell a guitar.
and I'm not going to impede that.
If I sell a guitar, then I might be able to buy another one. Yeah.
Any excuse is a good one, right?
Oh man, I always tell. I deal with a music store in La Crosse, Wisconsin, Dave's Guitar Shop, and the salesman up there is named Lon. I say, "Hey Lon, I need another needle in my arm. I see something on your list I need. I'm trying to figure out how I can get it." He just laughs, It's an addiction. Music is an addiction, but it's a good addiction, man. It really is.
Yes, it is.
God has blessed the guys and me so much through music. And leaving out tonight to go to Alabama, no banjo on our knee, but we're going to Alabama.
So, all right. Well, tell you what, Greg, on that note, we'll wrap this one up. We've had the Headhunters websites and Facebook and Instagram and every where they can find you. We had up there about the Lowdown Hoedown, where folks can listen to that online.
Yes,
so anything else that we didn't throw in there?
Well, if you're a guitar fanatic, I do a live stream twice a month for a company called Together, which is number two, GTHR.co, not com, but .co. And twice a month, right from this spot right here, I'll pull a different guitar, different amp out, and for about an hour, 15 minutes, it's like a group of people gather online and we all interact. And some people jump on a platform and we'll have conversations just like you and I are. Or there could be 20 people, or there could be 5. So that's a lot of fun. And they do like a trial if you want to check it out. Charlie Starr from Blackberry Smoke does it. Audley Freed Guitars for Sheryl Crow does a version of it. A lot of different folks. So if you're a guitar fanatic, you'll like it. If you don't like guitars, you probably shouldn't.
But if you are musically obtuse, don't waste your time.
Yeah, if you don't like music, man. But I think if you're watching us right now, you probably like music. You probably like.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I can't imagine anybody watching this show would go, "I'll pass."
Yeah, but we're on. Hey, we're easy to find. KentuckyHeadhunters.com, KentuckyHeadhunters.net. I'm easy to find on. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're out there. We don't hide from people. We're pretty good. we'll try to get back in touch. Sometimes we're a little late, but we do try to. If you have a question for us, we try to get back.
All right, good deal. All right, Greg, we'll tell you what, on that note, we'll wrap this one up. I want to thank everybody for watching.
Thanks.
Greg, thank you for being here. Everybody, have a good night.
Bye-bye.
This has been Music Night at the Majestic with Michael Boswell. If you enjoyed this edition of Music Night at the Majestic, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and at musicnight.net. Music Night at the Majestic is a copyright production of Starliner Media. Any use of the accounts and descriptions of this program, its audio or visual content, without the express written consent of Starliner Media is prohibited. Thank you for joining us this evening. We'll see you next time for Music Night at the Majestic. This is your announcer speaking.